She was bound to a downed tree less than 100 yards from her husband's farm, near enough to hear the windmill squeak. The sun shone down strongly, fading the grass light. The tree rested where it had toppled years ago. Roots ripped up like a sign no one troubled to remove. Cords circled her wrists and middle, drawn firm against the trunk, clothes ripped and soiled, stomach curved under the fabric so clear it pained to see. She wasn't concealed. She was put near enough to be discovered, and near enough to be discussed. Tom Reynolds spotted her because the path went by Hazeland, and because he'd used that path 100 times before without ever viewing something like this. His horse reduced speed on its own. Leather groaned. The Hayes farm sat silent behind her. Barn doors closed, house quiet as if no one was there or no one wished to be noticed. A windmill moaned once, slow and weary. Tom slipped down from the saddle, boots crushing dry soil, eyes never leaving the cord. She moved, head turning slightly against the bark. Her lips shifted. "Don't do that, please." It wasn't a yell. It was the kind of voice that informed Tom this had already occurred before. It was the kind of request that came after the yelling had already not worked. Tom halted where he was. He was 49, without a wife, a farmer who'd learned the difficult way that fear made things worse. He removed his hat and placed it on a fence post where she could view it. Then he placed his water bottle on the ground, a few steps away from her, not forcing it into her hands. "I'm not here to harm you," he said. Her eyes glanced toward him, then past him, toward the house behind the trees. Tom stepped nearer, slow, careful not to frighten the horse still standing nearby. Reins loose, calm as if this were just another pause. Up close, the cord looked fresh, not old farm line, not worn, purchased. He knelt beside the downed tree, the bark rough under his knee, and pulled his knife free. Her breath stopped. "Don't," she whispered. "I'm cutting you free," Tom said. "Stay still." He worked the blade under the cord, cutting slow so it wouldn't snap back. The strands resisted him. Whoever bound her wanted it firm. When the cord finally released, her arms dropped heavy like they'd forgotten how to shift. She gasped and bent inward, one hand going straight to her stomach. Tom leaned back, hands open, giving her room. He didn't touch her. He waited. That was when he noticed what troubled him most, not the way it was bound, but the cord itself. It was too fresh, too clean, the kind you purchase in town, not the old worn line a farm keeps hanging on a nail. They went and paid for it. He let the cord fall and looked at the ground. Boot marks circled the tree, deep heels back and forth, like somebody waited for a display. He stood and looked toward the farmhouse again. No movement, no sound, just the windmill squeaking like it had nothing to do with this.
"What's your name?" Tom asked. She swallowed. "Sarah." He nodded once. "Sarah. I'm Tom." She didn't reply. Her eyes stayed fixed on the house. Tom took out his coat and laid it across the tree trunk, near enough for her to reach. She paused, then pulled it around her shoulders. That mattered. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried, winced, and shook her head. Tom didn't lift her. He brought his wagon around instead, laying blankets down, turning his back while she moved over, giving her respect where he could as he tied the horse. His fingers brushed the cord again. That cord stayed in his mind like a splinter. The wind increased, carrying the smell of hay and dust from the Hayes place. "She's his," Sarah said suddenly, voice flat. Tom looked at her. "My husband," she went on. "He said the baby wasn't." Tom didn't ask who she meant. That wasn't an accident. "Tom," said quietly. Sarah nodded. "He said people would see," she whispered. "He said it would end the talk." Tom climbed up onto the wagon seat, reins in hand. The farm behind them stayed silent. Too silent. He glanced once more at the downed tree, the cord still lying there like someone might come back for it. Tom kept his eyes forward, but his thoughts stayed behind on Hazeland, on that cord, and on how close she'd been left to the man who was supposed to protect her. If her husband wanted her found, Tom wondered what was he planning to do once the town started asking why. The wagon didn't increase speed until the Hayes farm fell out of sight. Tom kept the reins loose, letting the horses walk steady, the way you do when you don't want to draw attention.
Sarah lay on the blankets, turned slightly on her side, one hand still resting over her stomach like she was holding something in place. They rolled past a dry stream bed, then a stretch of fence with posts leaning every which way. The kind of fence no one repairs because everyone knows whose land it is. Hayes' land. Tom didn't like how close it all felt. "You hungry?" he asked finally. She nodded once. He reached behind the seat and handed back a piece of bread and some dried beef, unwrapped slow so the sound wouldn't startle her. She ate like someone who had been told not to take too much for a long time. They reached his place just as the sun started to drop enough to take the edge off the heat. Tom's farm wasn't much. A low house, a barn that leaned but held, a corral repaired more times than he could count. It wasn't welcoming, but it was quiet. He helped her down from the wagon without lifting, just steadying her elbow until her feet found the ground. Inside, he set a chair by the table and poured water into a tin cup. She drank, then stopped, breathing slow. "You're safe here for the night," Tom said. "For the night," she repeated, like she didn't believe in longer promises anymore. He nodded. "Night's all I'm offering." That seemed to settle her. But underneath that, something felt off, like a room after someone leaves too fast. Sarah spoke while he was washing his hands at the basin. "He said it would be cleaner this way," she said. Tom didn't turn. He said, "If people saw me like that, they'd understand." Tom dried his hands slow. "Understand what?" "That I was a problem," she said. He looked at her then. She wasn't crying. She looked tired in a way that came from being argued with for too long. "Did he bind you himself?" Tom asked. She paused, then nodded. "He didn't hurry," she added. "That's what scared me." Tom felt that cord again, like it was tightening somewhere behind his ribs. Outside, a tin can rattled against the fence, just once. Tom froze. The sound came again, faint, like a foot brushing it by accident. He moved to the window without hurrying. Nothing there. Just the yard, the fence, the road beyond. He stepped onto the porch. The dirt near the gate showed marks that hadn't been there that morning. Fresh boots, heavy at the heel. He didn't follow them. Instead, he went back inside and latched the door. "Someone out there," Sarah whispered. "Maybe," Tom said. "Maybe not." It just wasn't comforting. He set a shotgun by the door, not leaning it where it looked dramatic, just resting it where it belonged. Gun moments were about timing, not noise. They ate in silence. After Tom laid another blanket near the bed and took the chair by the wall, he just stayed. Sometime later, the sound came again, this time closer. A footstep, careful, measured, then the faint scrape of cord against wood. Tom stood slow. A length of cord hung over the corral post, looped once, then twice like someone testing weight. No one in sight. Tom lifted it, felt the fibers in his jaw set. Same cord, same message. Whoever had done this wanted him to see. He cut it loose and laid it flat on the ground. When he turned back, Sarah was watching him. "They know where you live now," she said. Tom nodded. "And they know you saw," she added. "Yes," he said. She swallowed. "What happens in the morning?" Tom looked out toward the road that led to town, pale in the moonlight. "In the morning," he said, "we stop hiding." He didn't say how, if her husband was already writing the story out here in the dark. What kind of paper was he planning to use when daylight came? Morning came hot and clear, like it had no idea what had happened overnight. Tom was already up before the sun cleared the low hills, coffee barely touched, eyes on the road that led toward town. Sarah sat at the table, hands wrapped around a tin cup, watching him the way people watch a door they are afraid will open. "We're going to Cheyenne," Tom said. She stiffened. "To the doctor," he added, "and to put our feet where people can see them." She nodded slowly. The wagon rolled out with the sun just climbing, dust puffing behind them in soft bursts. Neither of them looked back toward Hazeland, but both felt it there, like a weight on the shoulders. They reached the edge of Cheyenne before the town fully woke. Tom pulled up near the livery and helped Sarah down, steady and careful. Eyes followed them, not staring, just noticing. "I'm going to send a message," Tom said. "Then we'll see a doctor." She looked at him. "Message to who?" "Someone who still answers when I ask," he said. Inside the telegraph office, the air smelled of ink and hot metal. The clerk barely looked up. Tom slid a few coins across the counter and spoke low, choosing his words like fence posts. He sent a short wire for Sheriff Ellis. Just names and a place, nothing more. He heard boot steps on the boardwalk outside, unhurried like they'd been waiting. A shadow crossed the office window, then stopped. When he turned back toward the door, it was already too late. "Morning, Reynolds." The voice came easy. Deputy Kane stood just outside, one hand resting near his belt, the other holding folded paper. Behind him, Robert Hayes stepped out of the shade like he had been there all along. That told Tom one thing clear. Hayes had not guessed, and Hayes had been watching. Clean shirt, calm face, a man who expected to be listened to. "Thought I'd find you here," Robert said. "You always did like to do things proper." Sarah shrank back without moving her feet. Kane unfolded the paper slow, making sure people nearby could see the seal. "Got a complaint," he said. "Abduction. Interfering with a lawful husband." He glanced at Sarah. "Order says she goes back." Robert sighed like this was an inconvenience for him, too. "We can do this easy," he said. "Soft enough to sound kind, or we can make it hard." Tom didn't answer. He read the paper. He knew papers. This one was clean enough to fool a crowd. Signed by a local justice, filed neat. Justice Blackwell put his name on it, the kind of judge who smiles at church and counts money on Monday. Kane shifted his weight. "Let's not make a show," he said. A few people had stopped sweeping. A woman muttered that a wife belongs with her husband. A man spat and said Tom ought to mind his own farm. The story was already starting to move. Sarah grabbed Tom's sleeve. "Please," she said, "not loud, not for them, not here." Tom raised a hand just enough to ask for a breath. He stepped forward half a pace, putting himself between her and Robert. "You didn't ask her," Tom said. Robert smiled. "I don't need to." Kane lifted his chin. "Paper says she's his," he said. The crowd leaned in. Tom felt it tipping. He moved without hurry. He drew his revolver slow, not pointing it at anyone, just lifting it into the air where it could be seen. A sharp crack split the morning. The shot went straight up. Horses jumped. Someone swore. The sound echoed off the buildings and then fell away, leaving a silence thick enough to chew. Tom lowered the gun and rested it back in the holster. "Everybody back," he said. "Nobody's getting dragged anywhere yet." Ellis wasn't here yet, but the town knew Tom wasn't a fool with a gun. Kane stared at him. Robert's smile slipped just a little. "You just made this worse," Robert said. "Maybe," Tom replied. "Or maybe I stopped it from getting stupid." Sarah's voice came small but steady. "I want to speak," she said. Kane hesitated before anyone could answer. A voice cut in from behind. "That paper don't say he gets to bind her." An old man stepped forward, hat in hand, then another. The crowd shifted, unsure now. Robert's eyes hardened. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said. Tom leaned close to Kane. "This isn't over," Tom said quietly. "You know that." Kane swallowed. "Doctor's on this street," he muttered. "After that, she goes back." Tom nodded once. "After that," he agreed. They walked, the crowd parting just enough, the weight of eyes pressing in. Inside the doctor's office, the door closed, shutting out the street. When they came back out, Kane was waiting. So was Robert. So was half the town now. Kane cleared his throat. "Tomorrow morning," he said. "Courthouse. We settle this proper." Robert leaned in close to Tom as they turned away. "You can't win on paper," he said, "and paper is all that matters." Tom met his eyes. "We'll see," he said. As they walked back toward the wagon, Tom felt the slip of folded paper press into his hand. A boy from the livery had brushed past him without stopping. Tom didn't look down until they were clear. Inside was a small note, just a name, and a word written crooked, Cord. Tom folded it back up, his jaw tightening. If Robert thought paper would finish this, Tom thought he was about to find out what happened when paper met proof. Tom did not open that note right away, not until he had Sarah settled back in the wagon and pointed toward the quieter side of town. He kept his face plain while he drove, because a man like Robert could read a grin from 50 steps away, and Tom had no interest in letting him know he had a lead. Sarah watched the street through the wagon slats, shoulders tight, like every boot step out there was aimed at her. "You did good back there," Tom said, not looking at her. She let out a breath that sounded like it hurt. "I did not do anything." "You stood on your own feet," Tom said. "Most folks don't even manage that when the whole town is looking." That got the smallest flicker in her eyes. Not hope exactly, but something close enough to keep moving. Tom turned down a side lane and pulled up behind the livery, where the smells of hay and sweat and old leather made the world feel honest again. Tom stepped down slow and walked like he was there for nothing in particular. "Morning," Tom said. Timmy did not look up. "You should not be talking to me." Tom nodded. "That is smart." He dropped a coin into the boy's palm like it was payment for sweeping. Timmy finally glanced up. "I did not mean to get you shot." Tom kept his voice low. "You wrote cord." Timmy swallowed. "Mr. Hayes bought new cord. Not farm cord, town cord. He bought a whole coil, and he did not want it on his account." Tom felt his gut tighten. "Where?" "General store," Timmy said. "Mrs. Bennett, she keeps the ledger like it's scripture." Tom looked toward the street. "Why tell me?" Timmy hesitated, then nodded toward Sarah in the wagon. "My sister had a baby once. Folks said things. Men said things. I don't like men saying things." Tom did not praise him. He just nodded, because that was how you respected courage in a boy who was trying to act older than he was. "One more thing," Tom said. "Boots. Mr. Hayes has a notch in his heel, like a bite taken out." Timmy tapped his own boot heel to show it. "He drags a little when he's mad." Tom thanked him with another nod and walked away without rushing, like a man who did not have a fire under his feet. But he did. He drove straight to the general store, hitched the team, and helped Sarah down. She stayed close to the wagon, head lowered, coat tight around her shoulders. Mrs. Margaret Bennett stood behind the counter with a pencil tucked into her hair and a look that could freeze butter. "Tom," she said, "if you are here to buy nails, buy nails. If you are here to borrow trouble, take it outside." Tom leaned an elbow on the counter. "I am here for cord." Tom kept it plain. "A woman was bound up near Hayes Land." "New cord? Your kind of cord?" Mrs. Bennett did not flinch, but her pencil stopped moving. "I don't mix in family matters," she said. Tom nodded. "Neither do I, not usually, but someone used your cord to do something a decent town will not want on its conscience." Mrs. Bennett tapped the ledger like it was a rifle on a rack. "You walk out with my page, and you walk out with my trouble," she said. Tom nodded. "Then come tomorrow and say it out loud," Tom replied. "Say it was your book, your hand, your store. If you want this town to keep calling you honest, it has to hear your voice, not just my mouth." That word conscience landed because Mrs. Bennett was the kind of woman who pretended she had none but kept a clean Bible under the counter anyway. She turned, pulled a heavy ledger from a shelf and set it down with a thump. "I am not letting you tear up my book," she said. "I wouldn't dare," Tom replied. "I like walking out of stores on my own legs." She flipped pages, the pencil tapping along rows, lips moving as she read. Then her face changed, just a shade. "There," she said. Tom leaned in. It was a clean entry on the surface. Cord, 1 coil, paid cash, signed with a name Tom did not recognize, the kind of name a man uses when he does not want to be remembered. Tom let the silence sit. Mrs. Bennett frowned. "That handwriting is not mine. Someone wrote that after the fact." Tom looked at her. "Who has your book?" She hesitated. "Clerk Harlan has been in here, says he's checking receipts for county business." Tom felt his jaw tighten. Harlan was already part of this, just like he had smelled. Mrs. Bennett lowered her voice. "Tom, you take that page and you make an enemy. You already have one. Don't go collecting them like horses." Tom tapped a ledger line with one finger. "I'm not collecting. I am counting." Mrs. Bennett glanced toward Sarah through the window, then back to Tom. She reached under the counter and pulled out a small bundle of papers tied with string, delivery slips. "This came with the last shipment," she said. "Cord is marked by the supplier's seal. Folks don't notice that. I do. It does not prove a crime by itself," she said, "but it proves where it came from, and that matters when someone is lying." She handed him a slip with a stamped mark, faint but clear. Tom folded it and tucked it inside his shirt. When he stepped back outside, a man on the boardwalk was already watching him too closely. Not a deputy, not a friend, just a pair of eyes that would carry news. Tom climbed onto the wagon seat and clicked the reins. They had barely made it 2 streets before a rider came hard around a corner, dust flying. It was Sam Cooper, a neighbor from out by Tom's place, face pale under his hat. "Tom!" Sam called, breathless. "Your hay shed's got a scorched patch, like someone lit it just long enough to prove they could, then rode off." Sarah sat up like she had been struck. Tom went still for a beat. "How bad?" Tom asked. "Bad enough to make a point," Sam said. "Not enough to burn it down." Tom looked at Sarah. She whispered, "He's telling you he can reach you." Tom nodded once. Yes. He turned the team toward home, the wagon rolling faster now, the town falling behind. His mind worked in a straight line. Hayes was pushing from both sides, trying to make Tom choose between saving his place and saving Sarah. Tom kept his eyes on the road, but his hand touched the folded slip inside his shirt. A ledger line and a supplier seal weren't much, not until the whole town had to look at them. He glanced back at Sarah. "Tomorrow at the courthouse," Tom said, "they're going to wave paper in my face." Sarah swallowed. "And you are going to wave what?" Tom looked ahead, dust rising in a study ribbon behind them. He said it quiet, like a promise he was not proud of needing. "I'm going to make the whole town look at the cord." And right then, far ahead on the road, Tom saw two riders posted up near a fence line, waiting like they had all the time in the world. The two riders ahead did not move out of the road. They sat off to the side by the fence line, just close enough to make a point, hats low, hands loose, like they were waiting for a friend. Tom slowed the team, not stopping, not speeding up, just letting the wagon roll the way a man does when he refuses to be hurried by strangers. Sarah saw them and went still on the blankets. Sam Cooper rode behind them, breathing hard, keeping his distance like he did not want to be part of whatever this was. One of the riders lifted a hand in a lazy wave, like this was neighborly. Tom did not wave back. When the wagon drew even, the rider called out, "Well met." Tom kept his eyes forward. "Morning." The other rider chuckled. "You headed home to save your hay. That's decent." Tom finally turned his head. "What do you want?" The first rider leaned forward a little. "Hayes asked us to pass a message. You are holding his wife. Folks in town are saying things. He does not like folks saying things." Tom looked at the man like he was counting teeth. "And you came all this way to tell me that?" The rider shrugged. "We came to help you make a choice." Sarah swallowed. "Tom?" He lifted a hand toward her without looking back, a quiet, "stay down" sign. The rider nodded toward the wagon. "She can come with us now. You can keep your farm, keep your peace, and keep your nose out of Hayes' business." Tom let a beat pass, long enough for the horses to snort and for the leather to groan as he shifted on the seat. Then he said, "No." The second rider smiled like he had expected that. "Shame. Choices get expensive." Tom kept his voice even. "You two are standing in the road on a fine morning. That tells me you are not here to kill me. You were here to scare me." The first rider tipped his hat. "Same difference to some men." Tom nodded once. "I'm not some men." He did not draw his gun. He did not lift his voice. He just clicked the reins and kept rolling, the wagon passing them like they were fence posts. For a second, nothing happened. Then a rock hit the side of the wagon with a sharp crack. Sarah flinched. Tom did not turn around. Another rock came, this one landing in the dust ahead of the horses. That was the point, not to hurt, to make the team jump. Tom pulled the reins firm, steadying them before panic could start. Behind him, one of the riders called out, "Tomorrow at the courthouse. If you show up with her, you better bring more than a sad story." Tom kept going until the fence line was a smear behind them. Only then did he breathe out. Sam rode up alongside, face tight. "You want me to follow you home?" Tom shook his head. "I want you to ride back to town." Sam blinked back. "Go find Sheriff Ellis," Tom said. "Tell him I sent a telegraph. Tell him it is not just a family matter. Tell him there is cord and there is paper and there is scorch." Sam swallowed, then nodded and turned his horse without another question. Sarah looked up at Tom. "You were sending for help?" Tom kept his eyes on the road. "I am sending for somebody who still thinks a woman is not property." They reached the farm with the sun high and mean. The hay shed wasn't burning. It was marked, blackened hay, a charred board, and the smell of someone proving a point. Tom kicked the hay apart, stomped the last warm spot flat, and spread it wide so it couldn't catch. He found the charred mark where the flame had been placed carefully, like a man lighting a cigar, not like an accident. Sarah watched from the porch, hands clenched around his coat. Tom walked over and held out the folded delivery slip and the notes from Mrs. Bennet. "This is what we take to town," he said. Sarah did not touch the papers. "Paper did not help me yesterday." "It will help you tomorrow," Tom said, "but only if people have to look at it." That night he did not sleep much. He checked the corral twice. He listened to the wind. He kept the cord he had cut from the corral post folded on the table like it was a snake that might move on its own. Near midnight, a horse whinnied soft, not from fear, more like recognition. Tom stepped onto the porch. A rider stood at the fence line, hands visible. "Sheriff Ellis," Tom said. Relief and annoyance mixed together the way it always is when help finally arrives. Ellis rode closer, older than Tom by a few years, with a face that had seen enough lies to stop being surprised by them. "I got your message," Ellis said. "Took the wire long enough that I started to think the operator was asleep." Tom nodded toward the yard. "They came by this morning. 2 riders. Hayes is pushing." Ellis glanced at the hay shed. "Looks like it." Sarah stepped out into the lantern light, stopping at the edge of the porch like she was unsure she was allowed to exist in a conversation between men. Ellis tipped his hat to her. "Respectful and plain, ma'am," he said. "You want to go back to your husband?" Sarah stared at him, then shook her head once. "No." Ellis held her gaze, then nodded like that answer settled something. "All right," he said. "Tomorrow we do this in daylight in front of people, and we do it clean." Tom exhaled. "Harlan is dirty," Ellis grimaced. "I've heard his name more times than I like." Tom tapped the papers. "We have a ledger line and a supplier's seal. We have a boy at the livery who saw the cord bought and the boots that made the marks." Ellis nodded. "That's a start. It becomes proof when the right mouths say it where everyone can hear." Sarah swallowed. "And if they do not let me speak?" Ellis looked at Tom, then back to her. "If you want to speak, you speak. If anyone tries to stop you, they answer to me." For the first time since Tom found her at that downed tree, Sarah's shoulders dropped a fraction. Morning came again, hot and clear. They rode into Cheyenne with Ellis beside the wagon, and that alone changed the way people looked. At the courthouse steps, the crowd was already forming, drawn by gossip the way flies find sugar. Most of them were not there to help her. They were there to see a man win. A few stared at Sarah like she was the one who caused the mess. Deputy Kane stood near the door, too straight, too ready. Clerk Harlan hovered behind him, hands busy with papers like papers could wash a man clean. Robert Hayes waited at the bottom step, dressed neat, face calm like he was here for church. He looked at Sarah and smiled, the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. "There you are," he said loud enough for the crowd. "Now let's stop this foolishness and go home." "She is confused," Robert said, tapping his temple like he was doing her a favor. "The baby has her mind turned around. She wandered off. I went to bring her back. And now this farmer wants to play hero." Tom felt the whole street lean in. Ellis stepped forward. "Not yet. This is Wyoming territory. We don't chain women to trees, not here." Robert lifted his chin. "Sheriff, this is a lawful matter. I have the order." Harlan cleared his throat and raised the paper like a flag. Tom kept his hands still and his voice low. "I brought my own paper." Robert laughed once. "A farmer with receipts." Tom looked at him. "Cord comes with receipts, too." The crowd murmured. Sarah took one small step forward, and her voice came out steadier than anyone expected. "I am not going with him," she said. Robert's smile tightened. He shifted his weight, eyes flicking to Deputy Kane, then back to Sarah. And then, right there in front of the courthouse, while the town was still deciding what it believed, Robert reached out and grabbed her arm. Sarah stiffened, not screaming, just turning her face away the way a person does when they already know what comes next. Tom moved before his mind finished the thought. He did not lunge wild. He stepped in, placed his hand between them, and peeled Robert's fingers off like he was taking a thorn out of his own skin. Robert leaned in close, voice sweet for the crowd, mean for her. "You are making a spectacle," he said. "You are shaming yourself." Sarah surprised everyone, including herself. She looked straight at him and said, "I am not your shame." That sentence hit the street harder than any gunshot. You could feel the crowd shift, boots scraping, people leaning forward like they had just been reminded that this was not a story about land or law. It was about a human being. Robert's face tightened. He tried to pull her again. That was when Tom stopped being polite. One clean hit. Tom did not swing first. He hooked Robert's wrist, twisted just enough to break the grip, and shoved him back one step. It was not pretty, but it was clean. The kind of move that stops a grab without starting a war.
Robert stumbled into the courthouse step, more shocked than hurt, and the crowd gasped like it had been waiting for someone to do what everybody was thinking. Deputy Kane lunged in with the cuffs, eyes bright, hungry for his moment. Ellis lifted a hand. "I saw Hayes grab her first," Ellis said. "You want to talk assault? Start there." "That is assault," he barked, reaching for Tom's wrist. Sheriff Ellis stepped between them, calm as a fence post. "Not today," Ellis said. Kane froze. You could see it on his face the moment he realized the room had changed. He was used to pushing men around when no one else with authority was watching. Ellis nodded once toward Tom. "Show him," Ellis said. Tom did not smile. He reached into his shirt and pulled out the folded papers. He held them up, not waving them like a preacher, just holding them where the people could see the plain truth of ink and lines. He spoke like a man talking at a kitchen table. "This is Mrs. Bennett's ledger line," Tom said. "Cord, 1 coil, paid cash, entered the same week Sarah was bound to that downed tree." Clerk Harlan cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Ledger entries can be mistaken," Harlan said. "This proves nothing." Mrs. Bennett stepped out of the crowd, hands on her hips, eyes sharp. "That handwriting is not mine," she said, "and you know it, Harlan." A low murmur rolled through the crowd. Tom unfolded the delivery slip, the supplier mark stamped faint on the paper. "And this is the supplier's seal for that cord," Tom said. "Mrs. Bennett keeps her slips because she does not like being called a liar." Harlan looked down fast, then up too quick, like a man searching for a door that had vanished. Ellis pointed to Timmy Pike, the livery boy hovering near the edge like he wanted to disappear. "Son," Ellis said, "you got something to say." Timmy swallowed, then lifted his chin. "Mr. Hayes bought the cord," Timmy said. "He did not want it on his account, so he tried to hide it. And his boot has a notch in the heel. I've seen it 100 times. Robert laughed, but it sounded thin. "A boy is your witness," he said. "A boy." Ellis did not move. "A boy is often the only one watching when grown men do ugly things," Ellis replied. The crowd made room as Ellis stepped closer to Robert. Robert straightened his shirt, trying to regain control. "Sheriff," he said, "this is my wife. The law's on my side." Ellis looked at Sarah. "Ma'am," Ellis said in plain words, "what do you want?" Sarah took a breath. She looked at the faces at the courthouse door, at the men who had been ready to believe a paper more than a person. Then she said it loud enough for the whole street. "No." That was it. One word. For a moment the town was quiet in a way towns rarely are. Ellis nodded like he had been waiting for that exact thing. Then he turned to Robert. "You heard her," Ellis said. "Now you let go of your claim or I start asking why she was bound up near your land." Robert's eyes flashed. He took a step back, then forward, like he could still bully the air into agreeing with him. Kane shifted, hand half raised, unsure which side would keep him paid. Tom did not draw his gun. He did not need to. The crowd was the gun now. And like any crowd, it was split. Some faces hard, some faces soft, all of them waiting to see who would blink first. People had enough. Robert made one last mistake. He spit a sentence at Sarah, low and cruel. "That baby is not mine." Sarah did not flinch. She just said, "Then stop acting like you own it." Ellis lifted a hand and nodded to his men. "Take him," Ellis said. Kane hesitated, eyes cutting to Harlan like he was waiting for permission. Ellis noticed it, and his voice dropped. "Deputy, you work for the county," Ellis said. "Today you decide which side your badge is on." Robert jerked back, but the deputies who worked for Ellis, not for Kane, stepped in. Robert was not dragged, not beaten, just held and turned and cuffed, the way the law is supposed to look when it is not pretended. Harlan tried to slip away. Ellis pointed without even looking at him. Ellis said, "Paper does not rewrite itself. Hold him for questioning," Ellis added, "because a clerk who edits books does not get to walk home and sleep easy.
Harlan will get his hearing, Ellis said to the crowd. Do not mistake that for justice being easy. It is just the start of it. When Harlan was pulled back, the crowd did not cheer. Tom stood beside Sarah. He looked at her stomach, then back to her face. You did the hardest part, Tom said. Sarah blinked fast. What is that? Standing up in front of people who were ready to misunderstand you, Tom said. Most men never do that in their whole lives. She let out a breath, and for the first time her shoulders did not look like they were bracing for a blow. Later, when the street emptied and the sun started to fall, Tom walked her to the wagon. He did not talk big. He did not promise a perfect world. He just said, if you want a place where no one gets to write your life for you, you can come back to my farm. Sarah looked at him a long time. And the baby? She asked. Tom swallowed once. The baby gets a roof, Tom said, and a name that does not come with fear. A child should not be born owing anyone an apology. That is how it started. Not with fireworks, with a simple decision to do the next right thing. Real justice ain't loud, but when good men stand up, it comes sure. Now, I want to ask you something, because this is where stories like this stop being about the past and start being about us. How many times have you seen someone judged by a rumor and stayed quiet because it was easier? How many times have you watched paper get treated like truth, even when a person's eyes are telling you the real story? If this kind of story matters to you, hit like so more folks who need it can find it. And if you want more Western stories where justice has to fight both guns and paper, subscribe to the channel because the next one goes even deeper. Because Robert Hayes might be in cuffs, but the question still hangs in the air. Who else signed his papers?